Hey everybody, I'm your host for today's episode, Casey Callanan, and I am joined today by Kathy Shanley. She is a strategist. She is a leadership coach, and she is the founder of Statice, thinkstatice.com. We are going to be talking today about something that is very much in Kathy's wheelhouse, and that is leadership coaching. The next steps kind of after you've made the decision, hey, I am hiring a leadership coach. Now what? Kathy, before I ask you my line of questioning today, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do with Statice?
Yeah, thank you, Casey. It is so nice to be back with you again. So as a leadership coach, I work with teams and individuals, and as I like to say in my tagline, I try to help you level up your skills. And so sometimes it's you're trying to make a difficult decision, sometimes you're trying to weigh different changes that are coming through in your life, and then sometimes you're trying to set a career goal.
All right, well, let's take you through a common scenario here. Someone who is in a leadership role has decided they need a coach. There are many reasons why. I mean, we talk about there being, a toxic environment someone's in, and they maybe want to consider a change or whatever the underlying reason is. They've hired you as a coach. Do you help that person establish what their goal is, or did they kind of come to you and you guys formulate what the goal should be and work backwards from there? How does it work?
Yeah, so as coaches, we believe that you are the expert on you. And so you are really setting your goal. We are just asking you some super powerful questions for you to get to what is it that you're looking to do? Why do you want it? Mm-hmm. What will it give you when you have it? And then what's our plan to get it? And what might get in the way? And then what are we going to do about that?
Yeah, definitely. So what does that first meeting look like? Tell me about kind of what you walk through with the coachee and where does it go from there?
Yeah, so every individual is different. Mm-hmm. Most of my clients love to start with a baseline assessment, right? So it could be, for instance, they're looking for something in terms of, hey, what emotional intelligence skills do I need to tap into? Which ones maybe I'm tapping into too much that I need to dial it back a bit. And so we might start off with an emotional intelligence assessment. There are other leaders that they may be good leaders and they want to be even better or stronger leaders. And so they might start off with an assessment like the work of leaders, which really focuses a lot on what are your strengths in terms of vision, building alignment, and executing. Yeah. And then there are still others that they're just looking to say, hey, I want my work and my career to be more aligned with my values. And so we might start off with a values assessment. So we have the assessment. It gives us a baseline of what people's strengths and superpowers are. Yeah. I might not surprise you that mine is reality testing and being very analytical. And then we go from there and then say, okay, given what we've learned, and we know that the goal that we have, which of these strengths are we going to tap into to get us where we want to be?
Definitely. That makes a lot of sense. And we know because you are a Forbes.com contributor, there is a recent article that you did go ahead and write called Steps for Meaningful Feedback. This is an article that outlines a lot of an issue going on right now in many workplaces, and that's just the hesitancy to have a difficult conversation that you might know is necessary to change a behavior. Talk to me about some of the takeaways from that article, and of course we'll link to it so you can all read it in its entirety. But tell me about the conversations that you're having right now with people that are struggling to have difficult conversations.
Yeah, so that is a fantastic question. And oftentimes that ability to give feedback shows up even within the work of leaders, right? So whether you're trying to execute a vision, mm-hmm. whether you are trying to build alignment or you're executing, the importance of feedback is so critical. For instance, I like to think about the person who has a vision and doesn't ask others for their opinions, and they remain closed-minded that this is the way I'm going to go. And it can really hurt them. And so in terms of giving feedback, what I like to do is to help people with some tools and tips for what will make giving feedback a little bit easier, or where some say, oh, it is so awkward, I feel so anxious. Well, start with the facts and providing context. Then talk a little bit about the facts around what you're observing, the facts around what's the impact on your relationship with this person, on the team, on the business. and then craft a conversation around that to share how what you're beginning to wonder, get super curious, get some feedback, and then ask them, hey, do you see things differently? Do you see them as I see them? Tell me how you reach these decisions. Tell me what you're doing here that I may not know, and then talk about expectations. So feedback is super important for individuals and leaders.
Okay, that makes sense. And I know that, we've done a couple of these videos now, and a theme alongside communication is trust. I know we talk a lot about trust. How does trust impact today's conversation? Just talking in generalities here, when you sit down with your coachee, where does the trust conversation start?
Yeah, we always, and I rarely use like broad sweeping generalizations like that, but it's pretty much and always that the more trust you have, the easier it is to have conversations. I like to think about it this way. Think about the time when you've had something go wrong.
Okay.
Right? If there is a lot of trust, people are going to trust that you did everything that you could. People are going to trust you had the best of intentions, right? And it makes it a little bit easier. If there's distrust, what you can see, I think about the situation of you could get the same feedback from several people. I like to think about it. Think about when your mom gives you feedback, your friend gives you feedback. The difference between you giving me feedback, Casey, and then someone I don't trust.
Yeah.
The way that feedback lands is going to land a little bit differently with the people that you trust.
All right. And as we kind of work towards wrapping up here, there is a separate conversation that might need to take place here, and that is just justifying the cost of bringing a coach on. In this kind of scenario we're painting here, the decision's already been made to, have a coach be hired. So let's just assume that they've, convinced the people who are in charge of the budget that it is worth having the coach. But talk to me about a return on the investment. Are you seeing the investment of having a coach pay dividends?
Yeah, and so there's some data out there that has said that 70% of the people that have invested in coaching find that they've recouped all of their expenses. I like to really oversimplify that and think about the costs of the organization when communications aren't being had that need to be had. Think about the costs of the organization of toxic behaviors and people who leave, as you mentioned, people who leave because they don't like what's going on in that toxic culture. And so having someone come in as a coach to be a thought partner, someone to brainstorm with, someone to assess or hold a mirror up and say, this is what's going on, can be super valuable to a company.
Makes perfect sense. There's really no reason not to hire a coach, it feels like, after today's conversation. But one other thing I'll throw in there is, and we talk about this, is a coach doesn't have an investment in the outcome.
Right.
So they kind of you in theory should be able to rely, this comes back to the trust factor, on your coach for giving you completely unbiased feedback, because they're not invested in the outcome.
Yeah.
Like a boss would be, you say.
Right. We are not attached to the outcome. And what we're doing is we're asking you a lot of questions, and you are actually coming up with the answers of what works best for you.
Yeah.
Yep.
And of course, as we end today's episode, I just want to give you one last chance to add anything else that you think is important for people who are out there. Maybe they're on the fence about hiring a coach. Maybe they've hired a coach and they're not sure they're loving the way it's going thus far. Tell us a little bit more if you have any other final thoughts.
Yeah, so I would just say, if you're thinking about coaching, one of the things that I love to do for potential clients is hop on a call for 15 minutes and let's see if it's a good fit. And this is something that you're interested in. And also it gives you a chance to ask questions and figure out whether or not, I think this is something I'd like to invest in and take my skills to the next level. Yeah,
almost kind of like a discovery call. And I'm sure this is something you would be more than happy to have a conversation with. Anyone watching today's episode, they can visit think-statice.com. We'll put a link to that in today's description. And I'll also put a link to that Forbes.com article we talked about earlier. Again, our guest today, Kathy Shanley. She is a strategist, leadership coach, and the founder of Statice. So thanks again for coming through.
Thanks for having me, Casey.
All right. Take it easy.